Welcome to Saving UX. I'm your host, Jeremy Kriegel. I believe UX is struggling. Look, there are more people doing the work than ever before, and every company says they're customer focused. So why does it feel so hard? And I don't mean the work. The work can be hard. That's okay. Why does it feel like we need to fight to do the things that will benefit the people we serve and the organizations we're working with? I've been in this fight for more than 25 years, and I believe it is worth fighting for. UX, done well and applied to important problems, can save the world. Every week, I talk to UX veterans about the challenges facing our practice and what we can do to make it better. This week, I'm joined by Elizabeth Rosenzweig. She is the director of World Usability Day, principal at Bubble Mountain Consulting, adjunct faculty at Brandeis University, the author of Successful User Experience, Strategies and Roadmaps, and holds 4 patents in intelligent user interface for digital imaging. Elizabeth, that's a lot. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm real excited to be here. I feel like my life's work is to save UX, so I think I'm in the right place. I hope.
So how do you see the current state of UX?
It's such a great question because I feel like we're still in an evolution of where our field is, but it's really a technology evolution. And although there are more of us and there are more jobs and we're doing more things, I agree with you that we're actually, I feel like rolling a boulder up the hill, and then we get a little up and then it rolls back down. And I think, I've been doing it, I'll say longer than the numbers you said, 25 years. I've got more than those years. And I remember when we just used to call it usability. And the reason we chose the word usability is because everyone else understood that. Everyone outside of our, HCI, human computer interface, or user experience, that wasn't even a word. It was HCI, right? And it was the people and the technology. And how does it work? You make it user friendly is usable. And, as the years grew on, I sort of started to think the opposite of usable is actually useless. And so that's where that word usable comes in, right? But then later, Don Norman got us thinking about user experience, which was a great thing. And then customer experience and service design. And now we have IA and IDX. And it's fine that we have all these little communities, but it's also like having a conversation about how many angels are dancing on the head of a pin. We have a small pie and we keep chopping it up even smaller. And truthfully, we have to band together. So I feel like we are at the edge of great potential, but currently it's not quite realized potential. So I think we can save it. I think we have to stop worrying about what we're calling everything. I'm not saying that's not important, by the way. Labels and taxonomies and who does what and roles and responsibilities, extremely important. But we are arguing and dividing ourselves over usability. Right now, usability is this testing thing at the end, and that's fine, but that's not that's not what I think usability is. So I think we are in a period of unknown. I think that the pandemic has possibly helped, although the jury's still out and we're still evolving from that. But the potential that we have to connect all around the world because we have this technology is enormous, right? And we could make the whole world better if we just figure it out. I'm not sure how far you want me to keep going on this.
Well, let's get into, I agree with you. I think what we call ourselves has been a big problem. I've had so many titles over the course of my career while doing very similar work. And yet aligning on what we call ourselves seems to be a huge problem. It feels like we describe what we do in a very broad sense, and then it seems to get sort of like narrowed down to the interface. And we go, well, that's not what we intended. So we come up with a new title, which opens it up again, and then it gets narrowed down to the interface. And but then at the same time, it feels like by doing so, we add a lot of confusion for other people, because if we can't agree on what to call ourselves, how do we expect others to understand like who we are, what we do, and the value we bring? So how do we bring people together? How do we fix this? Is this an us problem in terms of we all just need to kumbaya, get together and agree on something? Or are we, again, rolling that boulder uphill and it's really, it's about a business or environmental problem of our work being continually bounded in smaller and smaller boxes?
Such a good question. And I think you know, to step back 1 minute and look at the huge picture, which is something like the big picture, we are a reflection of where technology development is, I feel like, because, this digital transformation, right, is taken off like that. And as a result, so have our community. But what's happening as part of the digital transformation, I believe, is what's being reflected and in our community, whatever we're going to call ourselves. And so part of what's happening is things we can't control about like the bigger world, but then also maybe we can use ourselves as an example. So I remember when I was in graduate school and coming out of graduate school, we were thinking about two ways of developing. One was I went to graduate school at MIT. So we were thinking about technology first, right? Like I invented some great thing and I'm sure someone can use it for something, throw it out to the world. I think that's how we got maybe this. But then there is the market of what the opposite, which was so I was at the Media Lab and down the street at Sloan, the business school, they were talking more about how they could sell things. And so I think that's how we came, oh, you can't see, all the little dots, right? My screens of tiny little dots. So that's like technology driven and market driven. But what we need to do is to continue to impress upon the entire world that what we need to do is people driven, human driven, the person in the middle of the development, and then what do they need, right? So like, sure, maybe I have, sorry, I don't mean to advertise Apple, but maybe I have a mini little computer that I walk around with every day now, and it does everything, but it's a horrible phone. This is a horrible phone. And that's okay. That's fine. Just stop calling it a phone. I'll feel better. Because as a human being, this hurts my neck, right? Or I put it on speaker or whatever, right? You don't have to get into I don't have to give you my expert review of my phone, although I'm happy to. But and so the thing is, it's not actually working for me, but it's certainly better than what I used to have because my original training as a photographer, and I had a giant Nikon, so I'm happy to have this camera with me all the time. I'm happy to have a phone with me, to be honest with you, and directions. But as a piece of technology, it doesn't work. And part of it is I'm looking at the bigger picture, all my stuff is going to end up in a landfill when I'm done because of planned obsolescence and all of that stuff. And that's also not really usable to me, right? Because I want the next generation and the next generation to have a planet, right? To have a place. And I'm sorry, to reframe that, I want the next generation and next generation to be able to live on the planet. The planet will survive. It's the species that will. And so why are we filling up landfills, right? Like just taking the huge picture. And why aren't we making things more modular and giving more power to people if they want it? And if they don't, there's so many ways to develop technology if you put people first. So I'm sticking with the usability term because I feel like outside of the world, people understand what usable is. They can use it or they can't use it. And so it's a good segue to talk about World Usability Day, which is basically my mission since 2005 to use what we do as a way to rise up the entire field of technology development. So it's a big goal, but I think it's our only hope.
So for folks who maybe aren't familiar, can you talk a little bit about, what is World Usability Day? Yeah, take two. What is World Usability Day?
Yes.
And you're also trying to get it on the calendar at the UN, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for that question. So first of all, I'm not actually like even just hearing you say that, it's a handful to say World Usability Day. I'm not denying that. And it's not like the best name on the planet. I don't even, it's just the one that makes the most sense to me right now. I'm open to something else, but I also don't want to go down the road of, at one point I was asked, let's just change it to World User Experience Day. And I was like, that I can't just get into that whole discussion. So World Usability Day. So we started it in 2005. And interesting, since it is, we're still in the postseason, I'll just say a little, I don't know what team you support, but I'm a Red Sox fan from way back. So in the fall of 2004, we were just thinking, I had finished my term as president of the UPA, Usability Professionals Association, and I remember clearly Nigel Bevan, who is no longer with us, he came for something. We had this crazy, it was like right around now in 2004. The Red Sox this was the miracle of the Red Sox,
Right.
right?
Right.
2004. Thank you. So all these, right? So the age-old rivalry, the Red Sox and the Yankees, and like we were in the I think it was the ALCS, the American League Championship Series, and like we ended up, we the Red Sox, not that I've ever played for the team, but swept the Yankees, and it was in that course of events that Nigel and I were talking about how can we make the world realize that actually there's a lot of power out there in consumers have a lot of power, and they don't have to buy things that don't work, and they don't have to let technology make them feel stupid. I always was really upset when I would be doing and Nigel and I were talking about this. Like we do these usability tests or usability studies with like say surgeons or right like people who I would consider exceptionally smart, and they would sit down in front of some device and say, I'm not really technically savvy, I'm not very smart when it comes to technology. And I thought, whoa, stop right there. Why is that even a thing? Why does technology get to make smart people feel stupid? So then we started to think about how actual change happens. And of course, I was pushing for some sort of usability revolution, but it was good I was talking to Nigel because he's British, and that didn't go over well. So what we came up with was we looked at a model of Earth Day. And Earth Day in 1970 was started because of an awareness in people about the world was, that we were starting to hurt our planet. Rachel Carson had written Silent Spring, and everyone suddenly knew that the insecticides are killing the bugs and the ripple effect. And so 20,000 students marched on the United Nations with 2 members of Congress. And timing is everything. The 1970, for those of you who may not remember, was the height of the Vietnam War. And Richard Nixon was president, and he was getting really hammered with protests for the Vietnam War. So anyway, he started the Environmental Protection Agency because of Earth Day and the marches. I think he needed a win, but whatever. So we still have the Environmental Protection Agency, and we have so much more awareness of recycling because of Earth Day, and Earth Day has changed the world. So we said, we need a day, and so we came up with World Usability Day. And, from 2005 to 2009, we had 250 events and like anywhere from, I think it was 60 to 80 countries, and we had a huge budget. It was real fun. But remember 2008, 2009, then we had the bubble pop, and then other things happened. And interestingly enough, over the course of all that time, World Usability Day has pretty much been established as a grassroots activity, a grassroots observance, celebration, professional development. And so what's happened up until about 2010, 2015 is that on the second Thursday of November, which is coming up, events are scheduled all around the world. So people, originally we were doing things like in Boston, we were at the Science Museum, and we set up things like sorting socks so that or like setting time on an alarm clock as like these little activities. And then school groups would come through and kids would sort socks, and teachers and the chaperones would say, hey, look at that. There's different ways of thinking, right? You can sort socks with stripes or sizes or colors, and it's like, oh, different ways of, that's information architecture, right? Or they'd watch people try to set the alarm on an alarm clock, and I would hear some random adult going, oh, I thought it was me. I thought it was really hard. And so we were doing that in actually museums across America, and then for some funny reason in malls in a lot of developing countries. And then over the years, it somehow shifted, and I think it was more after the bubble burst, into these grassroots professional development activities. And then what was amazing is because we didn't have huge budget, and then everything was volunteer driven, and it was all the local groups doing whatever they needed to do. So then we started to see these professional development seminars for like students in Poland, Eastern Europe, like it just started to light up the board, in India and a lot of places that didn't have professional development. And so for a while, World Usability Day turned into professional development, grassroots, which was great, and that was great. And I was even amazed that that was going on. But in the last, I would say 5, maybe 6 years, we started to look, I started to go back and look at the other organizations like the Association for Computer Machinery, Special Interest Group for Computer Human Interaction, SIGCHI, which is the original group that the UXPA spun off of, right? And I went back to them because over the years I had been checking in. You want to like do a kumbaya moment, literally. Sidebar on that, kumbaya does not translate globally. I will just tell you that. I know what it means and you know what it means. Summer camp, kumbaya, we're all like one and we give each other a big hug. Anyway, in the last few years, I think SIGCHI started to think more about underrepresented communities, and especially since 2020, well, that was just a year and a half ago, but, more of diversity, inclusion, disability awareness, all of that stuff. And so I put together a small group for a SIGCHI development grant to sort of kick off World Usability Day again, to be more of not just professional development, but sort of raising awareness and connecting to larger organizations and events that are larger than just World Usability Day. And so as a result, we discovered there was quite a lot going on in the United Nations with a variety of projects, but mostly they're connected to the Sustainability Development Goals, SDGs, that are the United Nations came up with. And a lot of them are save the ocean, save the planet, that sort of stuff. But a lot of them are like information technology and infrastructure and all of that sort of stuff. So once we started to get into that, and then we went back and looked at the greater UN calendar, we realized there are all sorts of days on the UN calendar. And why is that important? It's important because it raises awareness, and then also it allows us to connect into something bigger than ourselves, which is the United Nations and these SDGs. So the calendar in the United Nations, it's got such a range. So if you want to go look it up, you can look up the United Nations calendar of events, and you can see, yes, Earth Day, and and poverty, and and violence against women. And then you have World Book and Copy Day, or World Intellectual Property Day, World Creativity and Innovation Day. And you keep looking through it and you think, where's World Usability Day? That would bring all of those together. And so we started a campaign. Well, it's going to kick off in full, but about a month ago, I had a kickoff board meeting with my new international board for World Usability Day. And and I have someone from almost every continent except Australia and Antarctica. So if you're out there and you're on that continent, please reach out to me. And so our goal is by September 2023, we would like to see World Usability Day on the calendar of the United Nations. And we will be launching several efforts to do that soon, including a petition to gain signatures, which we will let everyone know about. And the hope, the goal, the dream, I almost feel like it's my Hail Mary, to be honest with you, is we have the power to change the world in our field because we understand things not just about technology, but we understand psychology and we understand the human in the middle. So we're the best ones to pull it all together and reshape it so that what we do really does serve humankind and the planet. So that's the I guess not so short answer.
It's quite a pitch. So you mentioned you're working on a petition to get signatures. Like, what scale do you need? Like, what does someone have to do to get a day on the UN calendar?
Yeah, and I wish I had a definitive answer, because what I called, and I just didn't coin this term, but in the before times, before the pandemic,
yeah,
I think I needed a big number, like 1 million signatures, and I needed 3 ambassadors from 3 different countries to then take what they would do is put it on the calendar of the General Assembly meetings to vote. And if I got their support as sponsors, which doesn't necessarily mean they're paying, but that they are saying, I'm willing to go out and as an ambassador, get the rest of the General Assembly to vote for this, right? But now it's really we're thrown back to this unknown period, which I like to think might be an opportunity. So I still think 1 million would be great. 1 million signatures would seal the deal. But if there's other things, for example, we're working on maybe just having several, I'm sorry, not maybe, in addition to individuals signing, having associations sign on as an association. So far we have the UX, the usability. So I'm sorry, I always want to call them the Usability Professionals Association, but the User Experience Professionals Association, and the and SIGHI, and HCII, which is Human Computer International, Human Computer Interface International. We also have the International Federation of Information Processors, which is actually a group within the UN, but they're very isolated over. And they started in the 60s when they're really software. And then we're working on those like plain language, the IEEE, which is more electronics. And then we want to just expand out. So if we can get a lot of the big associations in addition to individuals, I think that will help. So 1 million would be great, but probably 200,000 would make, would get us there. It's hard to know. I wish I had a definitive answer.
How far along are you?
We're going to launch in about a week.
Okay, so this is
the petition.
The petition is starting. Okay.
Yeah, the board has been poring over it. And what I love is, I have people on the board. I mean, you can go to worldusabilityday.org and you can see a whole bunch of things we have. But the UN initiative will describe it and show who's on the board. But we've got people from all over the world. So, Brazil, a handful from the United States, the UK, Greece, Israel, Egypt, China. I'm sorry if I've left anyone out. I'm sure there's more. But that kind of a group to help us, push it out. And we've also got a design challenge initiative, which we started. And that was part of the SIGHI grant, and HCII has picked that up. And so that is another initiative now where we've given small grants to up and coming, I guess we'll call them UXers, people who are, starting to come up in the field. And the other thing we're doing is a speaker series. That's pretty much my sort of sidebar activity, which is really for underrepresented people to have an opportunity to do a little seminar, and then we'll put it up. And so we are doing more all the time. And World Usability Day is November 11th, 2021. So it's a lot more is starting to happen, but I'm having trouble predicting the flow of time, in the sense of what I used to know about scheduling and people's response rates and coming in quickly in the before time is not translating quite right. And it feels like more last minute, right? Like 2 weeks in, people are like, oh yeah, I'm doing an event. Oh yeah, got to get it on the website, or that kind of thing, where it used to be, 2 months out, if they weren't seeing their stuff up, and they would be asking me where, so yeah. I feel like there's more happens like right at the last minute right now. So yeah. I'm expecting the next 2 weeks to get really, really busy. We're sending out newsletters. And so we're running along pretty well, except for my internet drops every now and then, but yeah.
Well, anyway, good to see the progress. We'll look forward to the petition. When it's up, we'll add it to the show notes. We'll tweet. We'll post on LinkedIn. So anywhere you find information on the podcast, we'll put up links to World Usability Day and that petition to get you as many extra signatures as we can.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Yes, right. Very much.
One thing that's been kind of, if you don't mind me shifting gears, one thing that's sort of been in the back of my mind, you talked about the usability of your phone. And, it reminded me of something I noticed a number of years ago, in the sense that early on in Apple's usability guidelines, Apple stubbornly shipped with a one-button mouse, because they recognized that people struggled with contextual clicking. And so most people just didn't right-click. So by shipping, I can't talk today. Shipping with a one-button mouse forced all app developers to make sure that all functionality was accessible with a single click. And now, as we've moved into the full screen space, I guess you can do most things with a tap, but so many apps are relying on gestures that you have to learn and remember. So, our recognition versus recall balance has shifted. And I'm curious, as a usability professional, is that one of the things you're talking about? Are there other issues that
Exactly.
you're concerned about when you look at how digital design is evolving?
Absolutely. An excellent question. So, it's looking at a narrow user group that's able to do this, right? And that sort of brings me to another topic about data collection and how that's not really diverse, but that might be a whole nother a whole nother conversation. But in that regard, okay, so I know how to use a touch screen because I've been trained, right? But there's a lot of people that can't use a touch screen even when they are trained. And I think of my 90-year-old father who's incredibly technical. He's a practicing psychologist and still sees his patients over Zoom, which is like he loves that, right? But he can't use a touchscreen, and because he can't figure out how little or much, and then he gets frustrated and he keeps trying, and then he has to go lie down. I mean, I'm not kidding you. And so I feel like that's like the worst case scenario of this evolution because he loved Apple when it first came out, and all his products are Apple, and he's figured out enough, but like this evolution of technology is not always accessible. It doesn't always, it violates the principles of universal design that it's supposed to work for everybody. And everybody isn't, I'm sorry, everybody isn't like a young white male, which is usually what everybody is categorized in. So, sometimes what I read and has been happening to me, and I've asked other women, is sometimes the touchscreen won't read my fingers, and I know it's not my click. And then I read some data that they were optimized for white men in their 20s, which is not really me. The size of my finger, the temperature, it's not optimized for me. And so, that's just wrong on so many levels. It's just so I feel like this is part of the problem exactly. And I do think it's because we are basically market driven, and secondary we go to this technology driven. Like I could walk around with an entire computer in my pocket. Okay, so that's awesome. So, but do I need an entire computer in my pocket? And if I did, what do I actually need it to do? Right? So I know there's other affordances to interact. Like gestures are great, but they're also not always natural. I have learned to zoom with the pinch, but where does that come from? Like when I want to zoom in real life, I'll go look closer. I'll put on a different pair of glasses or something else. I'm not going to like, real world, here I go. I'm going to zoom into you to see if I can get to you. Like it doesn't match, like you said, doesn't match the real world. At least when there was the desktop scenario, I could kind of go, yeah, this sort of matches the real world. I have a messy desktop. I'll throw everything in a folder, just like my file cabinet. That matches my mental model of the real world. But zooming and pinching, where does that come from? It gets me carpal tunnel syndrome. Like it's not. So I don't feel like it's necessarily going in the right direction. And I did a couple times write an article about a usability revolution, but I can't really get everyone around an actual revolution of why are we using technology that doesn't work. So I think the incremental changes and then like sort of getting the whole world to understand something is sort of the path. But it's real frustrating because we have the technology, like the sheer fact that I could actually talk instead of touching a screen is huge, right? Because if you look at the WIMP model, the Windows Icon Mouse Pointing Device, it's basically from the 60s. It's like Ivan Sutherland, like with the little, mouse and the tracking. And it was awesome then. It was awesome then. But this is 2000. Where are we? Oh, okay, 2021, right? Like there's a lot more going on. We don't need to, stick with this one interface model that was developed in the 60s. So I think much more work. And I have, a lot of the people in the HCI world, the human computer interaction world, they are definitely looking more into, how can we use technology to overcome, they're saying disabilities, that's fine, ways for people who can't read, obviously, to hear. or people who can't see to also hear. There's a lot of different ways. But I don't think the big companies are prioritizing that enough.
Well, it doesn't seem to be as you said, the drive. And, something I've talked about with some other guests, a lot of this seems to come down to representation on your product teams. If the
Yes.
people building the products have a more diverse lived experience, then you're likely to have those concerns embedded in your design.
Yep.
However, it seems like most design teams are getting really small or don't have the budget for that kind of diversity just in terms of scale, or even doing the type of research like a lot of the research is like, we can do a study, we're going to get like a general population which doesn't include that kind of representation, and we're going to use that to guide our product development, but hey, at least we talk to customers, right? So
Yeah.
where's the impetus going to come from to change how organizations are currently working? Because I think we're starting now with the notion, well, it's a good thing and we should do this. And there are customers out there who, if not those that are, have constant disabilities, all of us may be temporarily disabled at some point for injury, aid, whatever. But the movement to make progress on that seems to be very small and very slow.
Well, that's why actually at World Usability Day started to reach out to some other organizations for that very reason. And the biggest group that's had a lot of impact is the group that started the American Disabilities Act, and sort of they come from universal design from straight up the disability world. And over the course of the years, we've always had good support and lots of events from that community. And so for us, one of the things we've been trying to do is connect with them. But your question about how do we really make change is a challenge, because we can do this on the professional organization level, but it's the companies that are building these products that we have to get to change, right? And then the question is, how do you motivate them? Because everything's about the bottom line. So it's all about the dollar. And yeah, I could do studies to show you that if you sell this thing that doesn't work, it won't do well. Or how about, my favorite is like, let's look at your customer support budget and see how much you're spending there. And I bet if we just took half of it and put it on this, you'd come out ahead, So that's fine. I could put on my little accountant hat and go in that direction. But that's not going to get it far enough, because there's a lot of, I have to be careful because I'm a consultant, so I don't want to say too much. But money drives everything. Money drives everything. And that's in some ways, that's a huge problem, right? Because if we're thinking about money first instead of people first, we're going to be thinking only and always about money. That's people will never win that battle. And so, it's both in the big picture, like I'm saying with World Usability Day, and that's like everyone at your office, everyone, there's stuff we can do on the ground. So recently at the UXPA Boston conference, I was on a panel of, with a few other, 4 other folks, of 5 things we can do to change the world, basically to use our field. And mine was about diversity and inclusion. So I sort of, and I'll reshare, my idea here is that, if every researcher could at least, and I'm trying to practice this when they start a project, to say to the stakeholder, we really need a diverse data representation. We need a diverse participant pool. Now, I haven't met a stakeholder who says, no, we don't need that. I've never heard those words, so that's encouraging. But I've heard, oh, we're a startup, we got to get out in 2 weeks. Oh, we don't have the money next time. Oh, this and that. So the question is, individual professionals feel nervous to like go out on a limb and maybe get fired if they're pushing too hard. I understand that. But then how do we make that balance? So I think we all have to do what we can. I see things getting more chopped up as opposed to less chopped up, because, I've been talking to all sorts of hiring managers for various reasons. And, now we have, I'm sure you know this, it's not just that there used to be this field of usability, and then there's user experience, and then there's UX design, and then there's UX research. But now we have design ops and research ops, which is great. We need them. I'm not saying we don't. But now we have more categories instead of less. I'm not saying with a big company, you don't need roles and responsibilities, and that's all great. But if we always think of it as these little pieces, then it becomes a zero sum game where some's going to win and some will lose, right? And it's really we're not going to change the world and make it better if it's a zero sum game. We need a positive sum game. We need to share and to feel like if I give up a tiny bit of my power, I'm not going to lose. I'm going to be part of something better. And it's anyway not about me having power. It's about things working for people. So, it is representative in what we're seeing with the rest of the world anyway right now. The whole world. I'm not just speaking about the United States.
That wraps up part one of my conversation with Elizabeth Rosenzweig, President of the Board for World Usability Day, Adjunct Faculty for Brandeis University, Principal at Bubble Mountain Consulting, and the author of Successful User Experience, Strategies, and Roadmaps. Tune in next week as we talk more about diversity, defining success, meeting people where they are, Elizabeth's career advice, and much more. Have questions or comments about the show? Join the conversation with Shuffle. You can download the app for iOS or Android at getshuffle.app/savingux or using the link on the show notes page at sux.live. That's SUX for savingux.live. And don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to the podcast on your platform of choice or to the videos on YouTube if you prefer to see our lovely smiling faces. You can also follow me on Twitter at Sonarc, SONARC, or on LinkedIn. I post show updates on both platforms. If you prefer email, you can sign up for email updates at sux.live. Until next time, I'm Jeremy Kriegel, and this has been Saving UX.